going on YouTube? In this video I'm going to be giving you guys a couple quick tips on how to buy a Mac. Now you don't have to listen to me if you don't want to. I suggest you listen to me since I do my research before I buy a computer and I'm not trying to sound cocky. But a lot of people tend to buy Macs and then get screwed over because of the refresh cycle or whatever it may be, or they don't max it out and then their computer gets outdated way too quick. Now, this video is just going to state a couple quick steps you can take to kind of get the most out of your Mac when you buy it. So first of all, you're going to want to go to the Apple Store and you're going to want to click on Mac, and it'll give you their whole Mac lineup along with OS X Lion. So I'm just going to go over each one real quick. Now, the MacBook Air is for people who are highly portable and do not need a lot of processing power. Now, with their new lineup, it does feature dual core, but remember that it's a low-powered dual core, and it won't be able to process like full 1080p videos in the time most people would want who kind of have the iMac. Now, it can, but it's going to take a long time. Now, the MacBook Pro kind of serves the same purpose as the MacBook Air, although it is a little bit thicker, and it does have an optical drive, and it has a lot more processing power. Now, this is definitely good for travel still, nonetheless, even though the MacBook Air weighs like 1/4 of the weight. But it's a little bit heavier, and that can kind of hinder down a lot of avid travelers. Now, the one after that is the Mac Mini. Now, I just recently bought the Mac Mini, and this is especially usable for if you're going to be hooking up to your home theater rather than just buying it as a desktop to hook up to a monitor. So you're going to want to get this, especially if you already either A, have a monitor, or B, hooking it up to a home theater, just because it features that nice HDMI output and you can connect it up to TVs. Now, the next one up is iMac. Now, the iMac, you would most of the time, if you don't have a monitor, get over the Mac Mini just because it has a monitor built into it, and the price ends up being cheaper than if you were to buy a Mac Mini with the cinema display per se. But the iMac features a pretty good amount more of processing power than the Mac Mini, and then on top of that, has a whole bunch of has two different screen sizes, and there's a lot more configuration you can get over the Mac Mini. Now, the one after that is the Mac Pro. I know I'm going through these real quick. I'll go into them more in depth in a second. But the one after that is the Mac Pro. Now, this is going to be especially used for if you're in kind of the pro video industry, not just kind of a small-time YouTuber, but people who make videos like, say, Harry Potter, or you make actual cartoons, then you're definitely going to want the Mac Pro, just because it features up to 12 cores of processing power, Intel Xeon processors. So those are really high quality, and of course, they do feature so much faster than, say, the MacBook Air. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to get deeper into this. Now, if you want to buy something that's light and portable, I would suggest either going for the MacBook Air or the MacBook Pro. So as you can see, we're on the MacBook Air page right now. You can go ahead and select your MacBook Air. Now, it does give you kind of a little bit of configuration on the front page, but if you go ahead and go into select, you can definitely go and customize it more. Now, firstly, you're going to want to find out like what you're in the market for, how much space you need, how much processing power you need, what kind of processor you need, how much memory you need. You're going to need to look into all of that before you are going to go ahead and buy this. You're going to look at what you're going to use it for like, say, graphics, if you're going to be doing like video work on the go. All of that. So if you are an avid traveler and you don't need much, then you're definitely going to want to go for the 11-inch 64GB just because it features the same processor as the 11-inch 128GB. And if you go ahead and you go into select, you can go ahead and, of course, bump that up to 4GB of RAM. And then that's the only customization you can get. Now, if you go back and you go to the 11-inch with the 128GB hard drive standard, then you can go ahead and bump that up to a 1.8 GHz dual-core Intel Core i7. Now, that is a lot better than the Intel Core i5, even though it only is 200 MHz higher than the i5. And then on top of that, you can bump the 128 GB up to 256 GB of solid-state storage rather than the 64 GB of the MacBook Air. So keep in mind, if you are using a lot of storage, then you're definitely going to want to get the 256 GB of solid state storage rather than the 64 GB, because I'm running on a 128 GB solid state drive right now, and I find it to be kind of constricting. So then, if you need a bigger screen size, you of course can move over to the 13-inch, and they both feature the same kind of hard drives as the 11-inch. They have the 128GB and 256GB, and all of these will run you for generally a good price, but they are a bit expensive considering their hard drive space. Now, I can't spend too much more time on the 13-inch, but Basically, you get some minor bump ups, and you can of course select better processors and a little bit more memory and a little bit more storage. Well, not more storage than the 11-inch with the standard 128 gigabyte. So we're gonna go back. And if you are in the market for something you need to have more processing power than what the MacBook Air provides, then you're definitely going to want to get the MacBook Pro. Now, if you are the type of person who needs to be very speedy all the time, then you definitely want to get a solid state drive like the MacBook Air has. I'm not going to go too far into that. I'm just going to mainly go over processing speeds and stuff with the MacBook Pro because that's their main functionality. So basically, the 13-inch finally got bumped up to dual core rather than Intel Core 2 Duo, which is a big jump up, and it features 2.3 gigahertz processor and a 2.7 gigahertz processor with about a $300 difference. Now, of course, you can do a whole bunch of different customization in here. I'm not going to be able to go over that just because I'm running short on time. But you can get solid-state drives, you can get more memory, there's just so much customization. So basically, I'm going to be going over processors and size. So basically, 13 inches for people who are really portable. I have a 13-inch Intel Core 2 Duo 2010 model, and I find it to be plenty speedy, especially for a laptop. And you're definitely going to want to get the 13-inch if you travel a lot or if you need to run light, say if you're in New York or something. So if you have a little bit more space and you don't mind the extra weight, then you can go ahead and bump it up to the 15-inch. And this basically has all the same specs as the 17-inch. And it features a quad-core Intel Core i7 processor at either 2.0 gigahertz or 2.2 gigahertz. Now, I don't recommend getting the 2.2 gigahertz just because 200 extra megahertz isn't going to run you for an extra $400. Now, on top of that, there is the 17-inch 2.2 gigahertz. Now, that's, I think, the best it can get. I'm not quite sure. Nope, you can get up to 2.3 gigahertz, but that's an extra $250. I would not recommend doing that because it's just not worth it. But then, of course, you have a whole bunch of different configurations. Now, if the only reason I feel you should buy the 17-inch over the 15-inch or the 13-inch even is for the extra screen real estate rather than the processing power, just because the 15-inch does feature the same processing power other than 100 megahertz. So if you're in the market for that, then you can go ahead and check that out. So we're moving along. So we have the Mac Mini. Now the Mac Mini, like I said before, is especially good for if you have an external monitor already and say your old computer died or something like that, or if you're hooking it up to your home theater. You of course can get a whole bunch of different models. I have the server model, and then you of course can beef it up with a whole bunch of different like solid state drives and memory and all that. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to click on the base model, and it runs you at $599. So you can configure the memory, but notice you cannot get solid-state drives with the baseline model. So if you're in the market for a solid-state drive, you're not going to get the baseline model. You're going to go ahead and you're going to want to go up to there, and then it's going to be able to let you get a solid-state drive. And then on top of that, it comes standard with a 4 gigabytes of RAM rather than 2. So unless you're like really running low on money and you have already an external monitor, then you're going to want to get the baseline model. And then on top of that, if you have a little bit extra money, or I would recommend just saving it up, and you could go ahead and get this second model, or like the higher model. So then on top of that, they have the server, which is dual core rather than quad core, or the server is quad core rather than dual core, my bad. And of course, you can go ahead and beef this up, and this will run you anywhere from $1,000 to $3,000 depending on your configuration. So guys, that's the Mac Mini. It's especially good for if you have an external monitor per se, or a giant TV. So next up is the iMac. Now the iMac has become widely popular just because it's got the monitor and everything built in rather than having some sort of tower like it used to be native on Windows computers. So you can go ahead and go in to select an iMac. Now the baseline model will run you for $1,200, and then the highest model will run you for $2,000, like all on baseline models. So if you of course can go ahead and you can go configure the crap out of them with more RAM, better processing speeds, solid state drives and all that. But I'm just going to go over the front page ones. So the 21.5-inch features both 2.5 and 2.7 quad-core Intel Core i5 gigahertz processors. So these are good for video rendering, and they have really good graphics. Well, they don't have fantastic graphics, but they're good for video rendering. A lot of people use iMacs for video rendering. So then jumping over to the 27-inch, you're definitely going to want to do this if you work with a lot of video rather than like a small-time YouTuber like me, just because the extra screen real estate and the extra processing power. Now, this will run you up for about $800 more than the regular model or the very baseline model, but it's definitely worth it, especially if you're going to be working with a lot of video. Now that's definitely good for a whole bunch of people who work with video, like I said before, but then on top of that, it's going to be good for gamers almost, because it does have decent graphics. They're not the best graphics, and then on top of that, it does feature that really high-end processor, which can of course be upgraded in the 27-inch and the 21.5-inch. So moving right along, we're going to go ahead and hit the biggest one, which is the Mac Pro. I'm trying to blare through these, so if I skip over something, guys, I'm really sorry about that. So the Mac Pro, as you can see, is kind of like the pride of Apple. It can go up to 12 cores. They are expecting to update that soon. So the baseline is going to go for quad core, which is $2,500. Now that's a lot of money, just because it features like so many powerful features, like as of hardware in there. And then of course it can go up to 12 core. Now 12 core is the most powerful one, and it would be used for people who do professional video work, like actual movies. So then of course you can get the quad core just if you are like a small-time YouTuber who has just a crap load of money sitting around under your mattress or something. But then of course the 8 core and the 12 core are going to be used for people who require a lot more processing power. Now you're definitely not going to use a Mac Pro for going on Facebook or going on Twitter. You're going to want to use a MacBook Air or something like that. So, guys, this is mainly for people who have a crap load of money sitting around, or they work with some kind of business firm or something to do professional work. So if you are in the market to buy this, then I would say really look into this even further than this video before you buy it, especially with what you're going to do with it. So then on top of that, if you have found what kind of Mac you want to buy, then there's this thing called the Mac Buyer's Guide by MacRumors. Now up here it just gives you a quick overview, and it shows which ones you want to buy right now. In green, which is the Mac Mini, the Apple Cinema Display, and the MacBook Air, because they were just refreshed. The yellow ones are kind of neutral because they were updated a while ago, but not to the point where you don't want to buy them. And then of course the red ones are the ones you don't want to buy because they're going to be updated soon. Now you can just go ahead and find the model or whatever you want to buy, and it'll tell you like all the statistics, like, oh, this was updated in 300 some days, it's been 300 and some days since it's been updated, don't buy now. So it gives like, so the perfect example would be kind of the Mac Pro, just because it gets updated, I'd say about average of every 300 days, and it's at 400 days. So you see the 511 days there, and you think, oh, well, that's definitely not 300 days, but then down here they have 240, 292. And then, of course, there was an article somewhere that's saying the Mac Pro was Apple's pride. So you definitely don't want to buy this now just because, A, it's pretty straightforward and says don't buy, and B, they're going to definitely max this out more, and your Mac Pro would get outdated. So guys, just go ahead and look through the Mac Buyer's Guide. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope it really helped you out in buying a Mac, especially if you're switching over from Windows. And guys, I'll see you guys in the next video. Alright guys, thanks for watching.